The man has just been released after serving a 12-year sentence. The first thing he does is coming straight to the driver for revenge. The driver had once witnessed this man committing a crime and reported it to the police. A young man wearing a black hoodie appears outside the bus. He watches the entire incident but not acting immediately. Instead, he follows the man to a dark, empty alley. The middle-aged man seemed to sense someone behind him. He turns to the opponent and asks him who he is. Instead of answering the question, the black hoodie guy says,
전과 18범 최성수야. 네가 어떻게 감옥에 안 있고 밖을 돌아다녀?
그거야. 법대로 했으니까.
Then he swings his fist at the hooded man. The hooded man dodges, causing the attacker stumble backwards into a pile of trash. He grabs whatever he can find and hurls it at his opponent. Seizing the moment, he slips on a pair of brass knuckles. Finally, the hooded man reveals his face. It is James. 12 years ago, the middle-aged man killed James's mother. Then he pretended to have a mental illness. He only got 3 years in prison. Such an unrealistic verdict planted the seed of revenge in the boy's heart. 12 years later, the boy worked hard and got into the police academy. Because he feels the law cannot enforce the justice, he chooses to do it himself. He saw on TV 2 punks breaking into a home and defecate. The homeowner tried to stop them but was beaten severely. Not only did the punks refuse to pay any compensation, but they also bribed the court to dismiss the victim's claims. Upon hearing this, James immediately rushed to the victim's home. At that moment, the 2 punks were peeing on the victim's window. James blocked the window with a wooden board and then attacked the punks. The next day, he saw news about a sexual assault. A male doctor assaulted a female patient. But not only was he not arrested, his medical license wasn't even revoked. So he went to the hospital. The doctor was about to assault the unconscious patient. James slammed the man onto the ground and injected him with an overdose of anesthetic, knocking the man unconscious. To get closer to real cases, James volunteered to assist professors in handling investigations. This gave him access to more first-hand information through the police. Reporter Jade finds a connection between these things and makes it into a TV program. After the media explodes with his story, people are totally hooked. Surprisingly, they support him. Jade wants to lead the Vigilante to continue the crime because it boosts the show's ratings. She reveals the identity of a suspect involved in a child molestation case. Contrary to the effect Jade wants, James takes no action. Instead, it sparks public outrage, leading them to protest outside the suspect's house. The suspect's life's messed up, so he decides to go big and get revenge. The suspect disguised as a delivery man arrives at the victim's doorstep. He runs into a patrolling police officer. The officer asks him to open food delivery box for inspection. Unexpectedly, the suspect pulls out a knife and stabs the officer. The officer quickly falls to the ground. At that moment, the sounds of the struggle alarm the victim. He opens the door and is immediately pulled out by the suspect. The officer grabs the suspect's legs from behind. The victim breaks free and quickly tries to escape downstairs. However, just as she is about to reach the first floor, she is caught again.
이제라도 나 죽이고 난 깜빵 가서 남은 인생 편히 살란다 이씨.
James arrives in time. James forces him to write a brief apology in his own blood on the wall. As James stares at the blood-written apology, he feels a sense of relief. The next day, this incident catches the police's attention. They form a special task force to capture the vigilante. Under pressure from above, task force leader Rock and his team launch a massive manhunt. They soon discover all the people they've captured are just imitators, not the real vigilante. Meanwhile, James watches on TV as the old lady is killed in a hit-and-run. The lady was a neighbor he knew and had always been kind to him. It turns out that an hour earlier, the old lady had been hit by a BMW. Just because she was blocking the car, the driver ran her over. A bystander tried to stop the driver from leaving, but they got into a fight. When the police arrived, they took the driver into custody, but the bystander was also arrested for intentional injury. Clearly, the driver had committed manslaughter, but the court ruled this as an accident. Seeing this, James just unlocks rage mode, but this time, it is much harder to take action. The driver is hospitalized under police protection, and reporters swarm outside. James devises a plan. He lures the police away with a phone call and then enters the hospital room. Instead of attacking the driver, he warns him.
가서 판사님께 잘 말씀드려. 깊게 반성하고 있으니 법정 최고형을 달라고. 그렇지 않고 풀려나면 그땐 날 다시 만나게 될 거야. 그땐 할머니가 당했던 고통보다 훨씬 아프게. 내가 지옥을 보여줄게.
Rock realizes he has been tricked and rushes upstairs. James leaves the room and bumps into Rock. He realizes James's shoes are not the kind a doctor would wear. He immediately turns around and goes after James, but he is still a step too slow. James has left the hospital. Unbeknownst to anyone, someone dressed exactly like James has been hiding in the hospital room all along. Taking advantage of the chaos, he shoves the driver out the window without hesitation. James watches the driver fall to his death right in front of him. The impersonator rappels down the side of the building with a rope. Then he jumps into an ambulance waiting nearby. James snaps out of his shock and jumps onto the moving ambulance. He shouts.
너 누구야?
The person turns around and says,
반갑다, 정아.
"Who the hell is he?" Stay tuned for our next video episode.